Hello, everybody. This is Nahaz, and men lie, women lie, but stats don't lie. Welcome to our special episode here. We're going to show you our Manila Major Compendium predictions. I have, as I did for Shanghai, my guest, my friend Noxville here, and we're going to break down all the Compendium stuff for you. Without further delay, let's get to it. This is one the TI prize pool prediction that does lock at the same time, so I'll comment briefly on this. This will change. I will send you my final value. I will wait until literally the hour before this locks because there's a lot of information like how good the next immortal chest is going to be, like how much progress we're seeing in terms of relative to last year. There's a lot of information, not just statistics, that this depends on. So don't I have 23 to 24 million in here right now as a placeholder. I know a lot of people are saying just over 20 million. That's fine. I actually think that anything between 20 and 25 is probably pretty reasonable. But again, I'm going to wait on that until we have a little more information. But let's get into the Manila Compendium predictions. So we're going to talk about the heroes first. And I think Ben and I agree on most of these. Ben, you had Lion most picked and Beastmaster most banned?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing that we saw with some of the Asian teams was that they definitely preferred banning bounty, but as the patch progressed, that preference went away. So there are a couple of teams that pick or ban it. Like newbie so far this patch have banned it 14 times, but only picked it 4 times. So they have more fear for it than they value it for their own strategies. And I guess Beastmaster is still regarded as a very strong hero despite the recent nerfs to him. So yeah,
I
I think
think
it's clever.
I think if you, I think the reasonable choices for most pick would be like Lion, Doom would be the other one that I'd say. Beastmaster could be most picked, but I think, and then most banned are going to be probably Beastmaster or Bounty Hunter. I want to say, most picked Lion was up there in the top 30 for both the Manila qualifiers and for Epicenter. As well as like if you look recently at the qualifier games, you're still seeing a lot of Lion picks. Beastmaster was up there in the top 3 as well for most banned in both of those tournaments. I think Bounty Hunter led by a pretty substantial margin in the Manila qualifiers, but I think that there aren't enough teams in this particular tournament that you absolutely have to ban Bounty Hunter against. Bounty Hunter is more of a situational ban, either for you in terms of stuff you're running or for your opponents.
Yeah.
Hero with the highest win rate is something.
Oh,
I
this
forget
is
what you
like
have.
RNG.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is like RNG. This is like ridiculous because you want a hero which has played like 5 or 6, like just over the limit, which
it
is
was like
five
5 and
games.
0 or 6 and 0. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, last time I think it was like Slark that won this one.
yeah,
I think that at the moment, like a lot of people are saying that it's going to be the type of like pocket heroes like Lycan or
right.
Clinks, something like that. Others are saying Earth Spirit or Phoenix, but I think that those are both going to be block picked. So weaker teams are going to not be able to ban as many heroes as they want, so they'll have to pick some. And I think we might see Phoenix and Earth Spirit lose some games as a result. So I think I'm going to just say Gyrocopter here because it's a hero that's been around for a long time. It fits a specific niche. And I think that a lot of the more established teams are going to go for a hero like Gyrocopter when the draft requires it. And they've all the top teams have got Gyrocopter players
So
who are
I,
experienced.
Yeah, I think this one is kind of a high variance pick. I have Tidehunter just because I sort of like I like heroes that a team is only going to pick in certain situations, and only good teams are going to pick it. And you of the teams at this tournament, newbie are the ones that have been running Tidehunter a lot. We've seen OG run it a few times. I think it's mostly going to be the good teams picking Tide. Um,
Yeah,
Again,
so
there's a
far it's
lot of
nine.
reasonable choices here. Pick your favorite hero, really. That is actually part of the competitive meta. Highest kill average, I've got Tiny. Highest assist average, I think I agree with you. I agreed with you and went Darkseer.
Yeah, I think that the whole problem just boils down to whether what the meta we're going to see at this tournament develops into.
Right.
If we see like a very fast convergence, there's like potentially we're wrong on everything we've written here.
Right.
So this is kind of assuming that it stays open at least during the group stages, and then the top teams migrate to a common playstyle or a series of them. Like for example, Tidehunter, like you said, you'd be picking it quite a lot early on. It's 9-3 this patch, 75% win rates in 256 games. We expect to see about 80 to 90 games, which we'll get to later. So pick 12 times. Maybe it's going to be picked 4 times. Maybe that's not even enough to get over the threshold. You went with Tiny for highest average kills. I went with TA.
Yeah,
It's a hero.
it's fine.
It's a hero that only the top teams are going to be picking. I think we'll probably see Sumail, Miracle. Maybe we'll see. Yeah, there might also be a couple of teams that have seen TA being very effective and decided to start picking it themselves. But I just went with TA. I think it's a hero which you often see getting a lot of kills.
Yeah, I like to hedge my bets a little bit. Tiny is a hero that even when he has a bad game, he's going to get kills with his combo, and especially if you pick it with a wisp, they'll try to get him back in the game with relocate kills, and so even in losses, Tiny will have a decent kill total.
Yeah, no diggity though at this event. So
True, very true. The Darkseer pick I think is just a other heroes that I think are reasonable for kills. I think you mentioned Ursa. Let's see, who else do you have up there? It doesn't matter. I guess for assists, I guess there's always like a Spectre or a Zeus, but Zeus is kind of out of the meta. So Darkseer, I more default to that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought it's either going to be Spectre or Zeus, which are like historically the best averages, or it's going to be someone who's a Radiance carrier, like Lone Druid, for example,
Right.
or even Nagasiren, but that's more of a pushing hero.
Right.
And if you look at the previous at Shanghai, I think Nyx Assassin also was like top 3 highest average assists, but that was mainly because Secret were one of the few teams that were picking it and doing very well with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a recurring thing.
I think the biggest thing with average assists, yeah, you want to pick either a Radiance carrier that you think is going to have a Radiance carrying core that's going to have a lot of long games, or you want to pick one of your sort of team fight initiators. Darkseer is just obviously going to pick up a lot of assists because of Ion Shell. Same reason that Spectre or Zeus with Haunt and Wrath are going to get him. Lowest stats, I think I went with Morphling at Shanghai. I'm going to go with Morphling again. I think that this hero again, he fits the profile that generally only the pretty good teams at this tournament are going to be picking it to begin with, and obviously he's very evasive. So I think that's of the individual hero picks, that's the Lion Doom or Beastmaster as most picked, Beastmaster or Bounty Hunter as most banned. I think I'm pretty confident in. Morphling is first guess. I'm pretty confident in. It's funny, teams still, Doom is most banned is reasonable as well. Highest last hits, you've got Naga. I mean, it's just, this is one of those where if you look at Epicenter, if you look at the qualifiers, Naga, in both of those tournaments, Nagasiren and Alchemist had fairly sizable edges in both average last hits and gold per minute, respectively. I think Alchemist had like 945 average gold per minute at in the quals, which is just, it's absurd. So I think you any other pick than Alchemist there is kind of dumb. Nagasiren, I could see picking maybe an Animage there as an alternative, but I think you're going to see. The thing is,
even when Nagasiren has like a terrible game, she still gets a huge amount of last hits.
Right.
So like we saw like Koifa's losing Nagasiren at Dream League, it still had like a huge amount of last hits.
Right.
It just, that's what happens. It slows the game down and tries to change the momentum at some point. It could be anything there though, because remember you also have to have 5 games. That's my concern with Morphling, is that if it's not a flavor of the tournament, we'll only see 2 games of it, and you need to have 5 games of it.
I think you're going to see enough of that just because, EG showed it at Epicenter. Obviously, Newbie, it's always going to be a pocket pick for How. I think there's an off chance that LGD will pick it up once. I just think there are enough teams out there that are a threat to try it out that you'll see it.
It's only been picked 5 times so far by the teams who are going to Manila this patch.
So like but
265 games
involving.
We're going to be seeing 30% of those, so that we expect like the expected value, if we extrapolate it, is only 1.3 games of Morphling. I think a lot of it's one of those solid heroes.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams. It's one of those you have to watch out for. It's kind of like there are certain meta defining or meta shifting games, and I think when you go back and you look, AUI played Morphling, I think, twice at Epicenter, and one of them was a really good one. One of them didn't go very well at all. But I think I think those are two games that are going to cause a lot of teams to take another look at that hero. I agree, though. You're running that risk there. I just think it's I think you
so
could.
far he's 2-3 this patch.
Yeah.
A lot of teams like look at heroes and they just say, hey, what's got like a really high win rate, and that's what they use that as like the basis because it's like such a simplistic way of evaluating heroes.
Sure.
So a hero like Morphling might have gone under a lot of teams' radars, but remember that like you need more than one team to be picking a hero because the best team in the tournament is going to play 2 games in group stage, 3 games in the winners bracket, and then they're in the grand finals. So they only need to win 6 games to win the Shanghai Major. So if you want to like basically
those are not no wait. 3 games or 3 best of 3 BO3s?
Yes. Yeah. 3 matches. 3 matches.
Okay, right.
So like a hero like Morphling is not a hero that you expect to see it's like maybe you'll see it one in every 4 or 5 games for a team.
Okay, so what's your pick there then?
I went with Lone Druid.
Okay.
Even teams that lose often don't have the Lone Druid dying that much. It's the bear that dies.
It's true.
It's the bear that gets ganged. And also, if the bear's having a dominating game, the like actual bear, the Lone Druid doesn't die. So that's what I went with. But I think Slark, which one previous time, is also good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's do teams. I think we're both agreed. Liquid is the pick to win. I wanted to say something about this because this is where we kind of went badly wrong at Shanghai. Obviously, we all thought that a number of us anyway thought that eHome was very, very good going into Shanghai.
Not Grant.
Oh yeah, it was. Grant had it right. No, in all seriousness though, I think there are a lot of these that this page is going to depend a lot on. It's not just the pick to win and the pick that is going to depend on who you think is good. It's a lot of these that depends on who you think are the best teams. So for example, I have Liquid and Newbie and OG as my top 3 going into the tournament. And so those teams are going to show up a lot in these picks. If you disagree with that, if you think, oh no, there's another team, there's EG is going to dominate, Secret's going to come back and dominate, that's fine. That's where you need, like, for example, team with highest average game length. If Secret had shown better form recently, that would probably be Secret for me, right? Teams with it's similarly to teams with like most assists in a game, okay? Because they're going to play a lot of long matches. Given the form that they've shown recently, I think they're going to end up GGing out of a few matches a little early, which is going to bring those numbers down. But again, this is a matter of you have to understand that many of the picks on this page are made because we think Liquid, Newbie, and OG are the best 3 teams. If you disagree with that, modify these picks accordingly.
Yeah, the other thing is also that this is like probably the closest tournament we've seen in a long time. Like although there are 3 clear like favorites at the top, it's not one clear favorite. So it makes it a little bit easier to hedge, but it also makes it more difficult to be absolutely right.
Right.
So even like I don't know exactly what you filled in, but it might make sense to split up between like if it's like A or B and A or B and A or B and A or B, it might make sense to go A B. Yeah, just so you get some points. But I went all in.
What do you have as? So I have Liquid to win. I have OG with most kills and most kill average. Yeah. I think Newbie is a reasonable choice for both of those. Liquid I think would be a mistake to pick there because I think they're going to have too many short games. OG and Newbie are both teams that are going to be very good, but their shortest games still, especially OG, aren't that short. I believe 6 out of OG's last 10 games at Epicenter went 45 minutes or longer. Newbie only has like they've been playing in qualifiers and stuff, but still they only have 1 game out of their last 20 that's gone past like 45 minutes, I believe. So
this patch, the 20 longest games, OG have featured 9 times, Newbie 9 times, and Liquid 3 times. Okay. So based on previous statistics, OG and Newbie are the ones to pick for longest game.
But there's a lot of there's a lot of overlap there, right? That's part of the issue, right? When you count up, there's a lot of like those three teams playing amongst each other. I'm going to go with OG just because I think they've changed their play style a little bit. They're no longer nearly as much of like a 5-man pressure team as they were at Frankfurt. I mean, they've told me as much that they've deliberately changed up their play style a bit. Again, team that wins the longest game, I pick newbie. I think you could pick a lot of different squads there. I think you could like pick secret even, but you know, it's
secret newbie OG,
right.
even liquid probably fine. Just want to say with the most assists that almost all the teams have got like a similar number of average kills per minute this patch.
Right.
So you basically are trying to that's like a very similar question to which teams have got the highest kill participation as an average. And
it really is about game length to me more than most kills, highest kill average, most assists. Really, you're talking about. I mean, in case it wasn't clear already, you're really trying to talk about predicting average game length. And I think OG is a good bet there to go long in a bunch of games. I think they're good, but they don't necessarily, the style that they're playing right now, they don't necessarily steamroll people. Whereas Liquid, when they get off to a really strong start, I mean, it tends to be a pretty short game. And again, average.
Did you have for few assists?
For what? Fewest deaths out of newbie. I think there's going to be one game where they just their early rotations are so aggressive that if you haven't prepared for them, I think that there's going to be at least one game where they just go like 15-0 and call GG. Team that picks the most different heroes, I think you can go with a lot of different teams here. I have EG just to be a little bit different. I think all of the top 3 teams that we're talking about, Liquid, OG, and Newbie, none of them are particularly noteworthy in terms of the number of heroes that they pick. So
you have to look at more the number of games they're going to play.
Right.
So you're going to you're hoping to pick the team that you think is going to drop down to the lower brackets.
Right.
And go through there. So
exactly.
I mean, personally, I think that OG has a chance of dropping a series against Liquid.
Yeah.
Or Newbie, that's how it might come out. And I don't know, I think Wings also might do pretty well, but I don't know how well they'll do in the lower brackets, like under pressure every single game.
I think it's going to be. I don't know. I think Wings is one of those teams that I think there's still a lot of potential with them, but I think they're going to hit the. There's enough tape out on them right now. Teams are going to be prepared for what they do, and I think that they still can be better than they are because they're going to eventually make adjustments to the opponent's adjustments, but I think you're going to see them struggle a little bit in this tournament. Team that picked the fewest different eras, this is the Archon of this tournament, right? And I think it's Mineski, no doubt. And the reason I say that, I know that you're a little bit bearish on DC as well, but DC, if you thought that DC was going to be top 6 in this tournament somehow, you would pick them for most different heroes instantly. Because the variety in their drafts is actually ridiculous. Mineski, I'm pretty sure, is gonna have a rough time at this tournament, and their drafts are a lot less varied.
Yeah, Mineski, like from the modeling that I've done, Mineski has got like by far the highest chance of getting dropped out, but so much depends on the groups, and we only find the groups out kind of once all the teams have arrived. They do that for fairness sake, so no one has more or less time to prepare, and if a team has to get substituted, it's not an unfair advantage on people in their group. So yeah, I mean, that's one awkward situation.
Not a fan.
It makes it very difficult to prepare.
Exactly. Okay, players. Again, this is going to be same comment that we made with the teams page. This is really, for a lot of these, you look at the 1 or 2 position players on the teams that you think are going to do really well. So, for example, I have Moo for highest kill average because, again, if you look at the Manila qualifiers, which isn't really representative, obviously quality of teams is going to be higher here. But also, if you look at Epicenter, like he had the highest kill average in that tournament, and it wasn't even particularly close. But most kills in a game, I'm going to go Miracle, and I think you could easily swap the two. And I think Matumbaman is a pretty good answer for both of those. Again, a lot
Yeah.
of the choices on the slide you're going to see very much motivated by that top three that we talked about in the previous slide.
Yeah.
If you think, for example, that EG is going to be really, really good, you pick Sumail for highest kill average, and you probably pick, you may even pick Bulba for most assists. But I happen to think that that Newbie and Liquid and OG are the three best teams right now. So I'm going to go with Newbie for a lot of these, just because again, when Newbie wins, they tend to put up really, really big numbers recently. Like I have Kaka for highest assists, I have KP for most assists in a game.
Yeah.
One quick comment: most assists in a game, I would tend to pick an offlaner who's going to be on an initiating core. Whereas highest assist average, I would tend to pick a 4-position player. And the reason for that is because your 4-position player is going to be serving in very similar roles game in and game out. Whereas your offlaner, the offlane meta is a little bit diverse right now. You're going to see more farm-intensive heroes like a Lone Druid. You're going to see more single-target initiators like a Beastmaster. You're going to see more AoE initiators like a Darkseer or a Tidehunter. All of that sort of dilutes that assist average, okay? Whereas a good 4-position player, I think, is a Jerax is a good pick here. Crit's a good pick here, right? Anybody that you think is going to be playing those good.
I think more Jerax than Crit though. Yeah, but I mean, the key thing here is just the variance. Is that you have some games where like an offlaner will just get out of control. We saw at Dream League it was General,
right,
just got out of control in some games, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that 1 or 2 standout games, most assists, easy peasy. I just want to say,
by the way, MVP Phoenix.
Yeah.
This is another
Yeah.
this is another thing where in both of these two slides, you've like MVP Phoenix is part of what makes this tournament very, very difficult to predict, because they play a style that in this meta, it's very, very powerful, but it has very, very little margin for error. Like they play such a team fight oriented style, such a snowball oriented style, that when they win, they look unbelievable. But in this meta, if you play that style and you lose a couple fights, especially because we're seeing a lot of lineups now that scale 1 through 4 or even 1 through 5, you give away so much gold, and you're in serious trouble. EG tried to run this style at Epicenter, for example, and what they found is that they'd have these great early fights, they'd be winning fights, and then they'd all of a sudden they'd lose 2 fights, and the whole enemy team had farm. And so you really have to ask yourself, like, MVP Phoenix is not a bad choice in a lot of these categories. Like Forev is not a bad choice for most assists in a game, right? Dubu even is, which is unusual because that'd be a 5, is not a bad choice for highest assists average. But you've really got to that's a very risky play. You've got to ask yourself, you've got to really believe that they're going to play perfect. Not that they.
Well, also, even if they play perfect, MVP plays very short games, so your highest average assists are going to come from someone who has a longer game.
Fair enough. I'm not. I still think I needed to hedge my bets a little bit there, because I still think they're a team that has a lot of potential. Highest last hits average, I think both of us went with Envy, and that's the Naga Siren effect. You're going to see probably at least a couple carry Naga games out of him. Yeah. Most last hits in a game, I'll go ahead and go with How. Any reasonable choices there from you?
I mean, I put High down. I think he's going to get he's going to have a couple of standout games. The same reason I put him for most kills in a game. He's going to have like one game where we're going to see what we saw at Shanghai. He's just going to carry his team. And yeah, I think he's the type of player that can definitely do that. I just want to say that like a lot of people are suggesting Miracle for a lot of the good characteristics here. And I think that is like maybe a mistake, because a lot of teams are just focusing him.
Right.
Like a lot of teams lose against Miracle by just focusing on him and letting everyone else in his team get a lot of stuff done.
Yes.
So that's why I put like.
He's a very poor choice. Like any of these, as we said, you can sort of pick the team that you think is the best, and pick the 1 or 2 position player. All you really have to know is, like, of those teams, what's their play style, who do the most kills go to. Like if you're picking Liquid, most of the kills are going to go to Matumbaman, because Fata is more of a team fight oriented player. If you're picking Newbie, Mu is actually going to have more kills on average than Hao because Hao is so farming intensive in the early and mid game. GPM, I think you have to be very careful with. Most GPM in a
Mm.
game, it's basically who do you think is going to play the best alchemist? And I think Mu plays a very good alchemist, mid alchemist for newbie. And I think
He
mid,
got he got 1,100 GPM, I think, in 2 games
right, right.
so far this patch.
So one of them was at Epicenter. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think that's an easy pick there. Highest GPM average I think is really tricky. I'm gonna go ahead and default to Matumbaman, but the only thing that makes me nervous about that is that he doesn't play much Alk, and I mean Miracle doesn't play that much Alk either.
How
So
doesn't I mean Miracle used to, but he
yeah,
also doesn't go for a very farming heavy alchemist. He plays a fighting alchemist, and How doesn't play alchemist, but he's quite consistent on other heroes at keeping his farm up, even in losing games.
yep,
Like he makes sure he has a very high GPM. He's got one of the
that's true.
smallest GPM differences between his average in wins versus his average in losses. So I think even if newbie drop a couple of games, he's still reasonable in that spot.
Yeah,
And
that's
Miracle is also, it really just depends on if one team picks a lot of alchemists and still loses.
right. No, it's funny. That's actually a stat that I've been tracking for some time. And when you look back at TI, like Sylar and Hao are the two guys that have had that statistic forever. Like their farm is so consistent, wins and losses. And to see Hao like back up in the upper echelon again is pretty cool. Player that plays the most different heroes. I'm gonna just YOLO pick Fear for this. I
I
think
did that last time.
I mean, I think that there are any number of different reasonable choices here, but it's hard to say because all of newbie, OG, and Liquid are their hero pools aren't small, but they're not huge either. They're kind of big enough where
Yeah.
they're not gonna run like 13 different heroes. They're generally not gonna run like 13 different heroes in 3 games, like DC does. Um,
The thing is, you want to pick someone here whose draft is generally drafted their hero quite late in the draft
right.
because it's the most you have. It's the same as in chess. You have consistent openings and then variations from there. So the people who get their hero last often have the most diverse hero
Right.
pools, or like they're heavily prioritized to win their lane.
And
And
so
Miracle's a very good example of that.
yeah, that's so part of the problem, right, is that um, recently this category used to be a lock for like the 3 or most often the 4 position was
Yeah.
almost always here, right? The only thing I think that you definitely don't want to pick a 5 here, right? Because the support meta is very, very tight right now. The problem is because so many of the really high value heroes right now, your Dooms, your Beastmasters, are sort of 3-4 tweeners. Those heroes tend to get picked up very, very early on in the draft, and so you've seen the effective hero pools of a lot of the top 3 and 4 position heroes players contract a little bit just because of the meta, right? So that's
Yeah, I
kind
think
of why I
that,
go with Fear because they're still running him on Earth Spirit and occasionally on Axe, kind of doing some different things.
that's true. I think that this entire tournament is going to be one of the ones where the draft is very, very boring for the first 2 phases.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Um,
Oh,
I think that
you mean just the first phase overall, picks and bans?
yeah, first phase picks and first phase bans, first phase picks.
Yeah,
I think like the second phase is where everything gets exciting, and from what most teams are doing, it's almost always either 2 supports or 1 support, 1 core, and it's almost always like you say, it's like
no,
the five who gets his hero, and then maybe the offlaner.
yeah.
Like there
It's
is a
it's
little bit
a
of
most
mind games for the
often
offlane.
most often what it is. So when you say that, uh, I'm going to pick a little bit in it because most often what it is the most common open right now is 1 support and like a 3-4 tweener. So like Beastmaster Lion, Doom
Or
Lion,
do yeah.
like Doom Witch Doctor, right? Those are your very common opens for most of these teams, where one of them is your 5, and one of them's either going to be a 3 or a 4. Which is that's the only issue that I took with that explanation. I think otherwise it's very good. Okay, so tournament. You've run these simulations. Total number of games played.
Yeah, so the average was 49 games in groups and 43 in playoffs.
Yep.
So that's 92, which is awkward because that's right near the threshold.
Right.
Uh, and the problem with that also is that in, like we said earlier, a lot of the teams are a lot closer. So our representation of the skill distribution might be
Right.
some very steep curve, but the true skill difference might be a lot more flat, and that
I
means
think it
that
is.
the games are going to be a lot closer, and that means that you're going to see on average more three games in a best of three. So
I still think
93 to 97
yeah, I still think
is what.
that's by far the best choice. Really, it's on the expected the sort of average in The Sims is on the low end of that, but I think it's for the exactly the reasons you said it's a good choice. Talk about number of
Yeah.
heroes picked and banned because I my gut actually I had these choices picked before I even saw your simulation numbers.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
these go.
So
It just so happens, for what it's worth, those of you out there listening to us, in the next couple of categories, like Knox ran the simulations. I did this more or less by gut instinct because I've been pretty busy lately, and it just so happened that we ended up getting the same thing.
yeah. So how it works is it just looks at the hero distribution in terms of picks and bans for each team, and it looks how many games on average that they're going to play in the tournaments. And I mean, obviously, there are a lot of assumptions made about how the groups are set up. It's randomized, but in such a way that each group is doesn't have like two qualifier teams, and it's got one of the top seeds, etc., etc. So there's a little bit of like behind the scenes data massaging to make sure the groups are reasonable. But after that, it just runs a prediction where it predicts heroes. The one problem is that generally what happens when you get from that is that you get a very spread distribution
Mm-hmm.
of heroes because that's what the entire that vector is based off. And in tournaments, teams don't have 100 pocket picks; they have like two or three.
Right.
So you get more of a convergence towards like a very top-heavy distribution, and as a result, like for example, the prediction was that the heroes picked would be 96 or 97.
Oof. Yeah, I think that's way high.
And I think it's going to be, I think it actually is going to be like borderline between the 80, 81 branches.
Now,
So
I think what you said is right, and I'll add to that. It's like people talk about and they worry about pocket strats when they talk about
yeah,
picks and bans, but I think what you're saying is basically that a lot of these teams when they run pocket strats, it's some of the same pocket strats. Like you saw in actually in the deciding game against Liquid and Epicenter, you saw was that the I think that was game 5 where they actually tried to pull out the How Venomancer, with the nod, little bit of a nod to wings there. I mean,
yeah,
it's sort of the same, a lot of the same pocket strats that you're seeing. The pros talk to one another. They talk to each other a lot, and they scrim each other a lot. And so, a lot of times these teams will see something unusual in a scrim and they'll try it out for themselves. So it's not surprising that there's a little bit of strategy bleed over. So anyway, I think 81 to 90 is the right answer here. I think 71 to 80 in terms of the bans is also pretty clearly the right answer, and those ended up bearing out in the Sims. Your choice for combined total kills is a little bit lower. I have 111 to 120, just because I think that there's going to be at least one of these games that just degenerates into like a 63 to 50 bloodbath. But
the thing is, I think the more important question first is how long you think the longest game is going to be.
yes,
Because in the longer games, the average kills per minute is around the zero point 0.8 mark.
that's okay.
So
But I wanted to bring that up with you. Okay, I'm glad you
yeah,
went in that direction, because the problem is what I've seen lately in just the small sample of games that I've looked at that have been really long, versus like 35 to 45-minute games.
yeah,
Kills per minute and length of game have been negatively correlated, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. So it's actually not, unless we have like one of these 2-hour long epics, it's actually not clear that you're going to see the most total kills in the longest game of the tournament. It's
yeah.
it's a good bet that it'll happen, but it's definitely not a certainty. So I'm going to err on the high. I think 111 to 120 is on the high side. I think the two categories before that, I think 90 to 100 and 100 to 110 are both okay picks. I'm gonna go on the high side of that. Um, what do you have again?
I have 80 to 90
You have
or
80.
80
I
to.
see. I think that's way low. I think that's way low.
I mean, this patch we've only had two games so far in 200. It's like 250 or
Hmm.
260 games that these teams have played.
Hmm.
And there's only been two that are longer than 80 the whole time. One was 124. It was
Right.
the IGY versus CDEC game, and one went 82 minutes. I think that was like a complexity game or
Oh
something.
no, you're
But
talking about game length though. I'm talking about total number of kills.
yeah, but it I think even though you say that it's inversely correlated, like you have to make sure that like you're not going to get 100 kills in 20 minutes. Like that's not going to happen.
No,
Like
but you're. Yeah, I think you're more than. I think you're more likely to see 100 kills in a 65-minute game than you are in a lot of cases. You're almost as likely, if not in some cases more likely, to see 100 kills in a 65-minute game as you are an 85-minute game.
I mean, we could have a friendly bet, I guess, on this one, the side pot
Okay.
on whether or not the longest game will have the most kills.
Okay. All right. I I,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it
you're gonna
definitely
have to
tapers
give me
off.
odds because I think it's actually about
Oh,
60-40 in favor. But and I'm a poker player, man. I don't bet at a disadvantage. But anyway, longest game I have 80 to 89. I think
yeah,
you
yeah.
same. Okay. Yeah.
Again, I could get behind a slightly high number of total kills, but only one category up. I would only go to
All
the
right. You know what?
81 to 90. Like that's a killer minute,
I'm gonna
basically.
go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 101 to one. I'm gonna go 101 to 110. You're
Are
gonna
you?
go. You're gonna go 81 to 90.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
81 to 90.
Okay.
So
All
there's a
right.
gap. There's a gap between us.
Okay. There's a
But
gap between us. That's fine. I think that anyway. It's kind of it's also, let's be honest, folks. These are fantasy points. Like the advice I used to give my friends when they went to Vegas and they didn't really know what they were doing. I was like, look, just pick a like a basketball game and bet the over, right? Because betting the over is fun. It means you cheer for scoring. You're like, yay, they scored a basket, and you don't really care which team it is. You know that I like to guess high on these because that way when I'm watching the games I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of kills there. Not like, okay, you have enough kills, stop killing people. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Shortest game of the tournament, we're in agreement on this. I think 15 to 20 minutes is the right answer. They're just with all of these insane comebacks that we've been seeing, teams are getting a little bit slower to GG out. I would be shocked if this is below. I'd be absolutely shocked if this was below 10 minutes, and I'd be mildly surprised if it were 10 to 15. I think 15 to 20 is the comfort zone here. Um, Most kills by a hero, I'm going to go 23 to 25. I think again this is on the high side, and one of the two lower categories would be reasonable here. Opinions?
Yeah, I'm torn between 17 to 19 and 20 to 22.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I'm gonna stay with 20 to 22.
Didn't I believe at Shanghai this was OD with like 25.
Yeah, it was Iceberg, I think, and he said
Yeah,
it in the
yeah.
group stage,
Yes.
and then they got eliminated.
Yeah, so that's the
Um,
funny thing. I mean, again, don't assume that don't assume that this is necessarily going to be by like by Matumbaman or anything like that. That's the other thing when you go back to the previous page that we probably should have brought up. Um, the most X in a game is very different from highest or lowest average X. So like if you want to pick a player from your favorite team, pick that player for most kills in a game because that could easily happen, right? Pick the carry on what you think is the best team for most average, or the mid from what you think is the best team for the most average. Okay, that's the general rule of thumb. Most assists in a game. I'm going to go 28 to 31. Ben?
yeah. Uh, I don't know if it's gonna be that. Like, why do you think it's gonna be like so 18 to 20? What? Hello?
Yeah. Are you?
Sorry, you like broke up a second. Yeah.
Okay. So
Why do you think it's gonna be so high though?
again, just because I think you're gonna see like a ridiculous Darkseer or Elder Titan or Spectre game. I think you're gonna see like a maybe a House Spectre game that goes forever. Again, it's on the high side. I think you could. I think any of these last couple of questions. I think I've. I think for most combined total kills, most kills, and most assists, I think I've picked the highest reasonable category, and I think one or two categories lower, if you're really looking to maximize expected compendium points, might be the play. But I don't know. I like watching games and rooting for cool shit to happen.
Okay, well, I mean,
Ben's like, no statistics.
yeah, uh, yeah. I was just looking at some of the WePlay data,
Yep.
and there was only one game out of it was like 30 of them or something, that had more than 90 kills.
But look at
It was like,
look at Epicenter though, and look at that's the other thing you have to look at the qualifiers. There were a couple of those
yeah,
qualifier games that got really crazy, and again, the skill disparity is telling there. But I've seen newbie in a lot of games where they've just posted a crap ton of kills, and
yes. So much of this is just very very heavily dependent on um what the groups are,
right,
because
yes,
like you basically the most close games are when you have like one group of death
right,
that's got two teams that are fighting for that second spot in the group
yeah.
because
So
they don't want to have to play two best of ones in a row. I mean, that's really there's such a huge benefit. If you win one best of three, you bypass that like the first best of one death trap. Like
right.
it's massive.
No, and that's so. I'll be totally honest here for those of you at home that um, I did not research this as carefully because I believe we knew the groups for Shanghai when we did our projections for that compendium, and without knowing the groups, there really you can simulate, but the a principle of Monte Carlo simulations is the more different states of the world you try and average over, the more sort of artificially centralized your predictions become. And there's a lot of uncertainty associated with those predictions that's not necessarily reflected in conventional Monte Carlo standard errors, for example. And
Yeah, and the other problem is it could also diverge where you get like even the most unusual states get hits like 1%, like 0.1%
right,
of the time.
right,
And that happens a lot with the heroes. Like it's very difficult to work out whether the vector of heroes that a team's gonna pick is gonna like how much it's gonna shrink
right,
based on the fact that they're having a boot camp and they're only practicing. They have like finite time to practice the heroes that they want to play.
right.
So they won't pick a hero that they might be very experienced with because they haven't practiced it enough. So yeah, it's like difficult to work out how much that shrinkage occurs is.
Shrinkage. Yes, one of my favorite. George Costanza doesn't like it, but I like it as a Bayesian term. Last but not least, highest GPM 1,000 plus easy. Like Mu did it twice on Alchemist in one tournament. Like Alk is broken, and this, by the way, that is post the Grievel's Greed nerf to illusions. Like that was the one thing. That was the one thing that I worried about when I saw that. I was like, oh crap, that was before, but that was post nerf. This hero is still pretty broken in terms of farming capacity. So I think 1K GPM you're going to see in this game, and it's pretty.
So like you said, we've seen it 2 times by Mu, and I think it's 3 times so far this patch out of 392 games. It's happened 3 times.
Right.
But we're only going to see about 90 games. So
yeah, but we're going to see
it's really just that question of is it going to happen or isn't going to happen? But like it's
we've got
literally
one player playing in the tournament that's done it twice, right? I mean,
yeah. But I'm saying to people who are making that decision, are you going to go like 900 to 999 is pretty safe?
That's it. The only, in my opinion, the only 2 reasonable choices here are 900 to 999 and 1K plus. Like I think I would be very surprised if it's under 900. It's possible, But with the kind of numbers that we've seen Farming Alchemist put up, like I said, his average in the qualifiers was like 945 GPM average.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is also you have to like just think about it from the perspective of what situation do you need to get a 1K Alchemist, and what that normally requires is about a 30-minute game. Like that's probably the peak time to get that 34 minutes. Once you've got all your items up and you're farming at maximum potential,
Yeah.
and you do that for a couple of minutes, you get a couple of kills, and then you end the game. And I think that this is the major. A lot of teams are going to hang on. It might be conducive towards an environment where you get teams hanging on even though they have no chance, and that might lead to such a high GPM. But I'm gonna play it conservative and just say 900 to 909 and just hope that no one gets over 1,000. Like 1,000 is actually like more 1,000 plus GPMs as a percentage of being broken this patch than any patch before it.
Right. That's the thing. I just think with Alchemist back in the meta, you know, even with the nerf, like Miracle is still putting up sick farm on that hero even when he's going like Armlet first. So I just think you're going to see enough of the hero in the tournament that there's a good chance you'll see over 1,000. I mean, I with a couple of these, honestly, like I said, with a couple of these picks, if I really were trying to utterly maximize expected compendium points, I might go one category lower, maybe even two. But you know, this is consumption value for me, so I'm gonna root for 1K GPM, and I'm gonna feel good when it happens. There you go. All right, I think that's it. Nox, any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's covered. That's just a reminder for people who maybe skip forward to see some of the things. To be sure to check out Twitter, where the TI6 prize pool will put updated predictions closer to the time.
Yep.
And yeah, mates, I'll see you in a few days when you travel there. We'll film some stat stuff while we're there.
Yeah, we're gonna. Nox apparently. Nox tells me he's got a GoPro, so.
No, I didn't get the GoPro. I got the Sony Handycam. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a little bit. It's bigger than a GoPro. It's like a Handycam.
Okay.
But it's can do 1080p, 50 frames per second, so it can have high definition statistics.
Nice. All right, so yeah, we are going to film some video content in Manila. I will actually be out with some written content as well in the next couple of weeks. Look for that. And until then, this is Nahaz and Noxville. Thanks so much for stopping by, my friend. We will talk to you soon.